We here at WRKM and at This Will in Darkness would like to extend our sympathies and our most sincerest, well wishes to the family of Kevin Conroy, voice actor who is most known for voice acting Batman and considered by most to be the best Batman. And you have to keep in mind he was following Michael Keaton because the show was kind of made, off the popularity of the Tim Burton Batman, And here was a guy who not only followed Keaton in vocal only and still became considered one of the best Batman to ever exist. He was my Batman. When I read comic books, it's Kevin Conroy's voice as Batman. He died at 66, which, the original Batman television series, I believe, came out in 66. So that's kind of serendipitous in its own way. But 66 is not old, and it's sad that he passed away so young. Some of my favorite performances, the Two-Face episodes were always good. The way he would say Harvey in that raspy voice of just disappointment of what he became. Heart of Ice, which is also a classic for Mr. Freeze, but I think it's anchored on Batman being so phenomenal Kevin being so phenomenal as a emotional, bounce board for Mr. Freeze. Over the Edge is one of my favorites too. It's the episode where Batgirl dies and Jim Gordon hunts down Batman. And just those voice actors going at it, and Kevin bringing a level of gravitas to the character. The beauty of Kevin was that he can make Batman funny. He can make Batman charismatic. He can be, seductive. He can be a detective. He can be frightening. He can be a beast. He could be all those things, and it was never out of character. And that's a true testament to a man's ability in a role. And he kept his illness secret so he can still go to cons and talk to fans, and interact with them. And when you hear that stuff, it kind of reminds you of Chadwick Boseman, who this week Wakanda Forever is coming out. And he did the same thing with his cancer. And this is why I tell people to you, or to those who are uninitiated, they're just comic book movies to you. They're dumb comic book movies to you. But for these guys, they take on a role that lasts a lifetime. They become something to generations. They become these larger in life characters, that define aspects of our morality, define aspects of our view of society, and what we hope to be, what we aspire to be, the best of ourselves. And Kevin brought that to Batman at every time. He didn't just do it in the Batman animated series. He did it in for most of the cartoon movies. He did it during the Batman Arkham series, which is considered one of the greatest superhero video game anything ever. And he had to play Batman in person for the Batwoman show on Crisis on Infinite Earths. So he had to show us what his Bruce Wayne would have looked like. And that was beautiful. He's not the only one that passed away. Gallagher passed away too at 76. Also short illness that took him. Also kept it kind of private. Gallagher in a lot of ways was kind of a joke to people when I was growing up. They made fun of him a lot, for smashing a watermelon, thinking he was a one-trick pony in a prop comic. But he had some stuff, man. If you go back and watch his performances, it's performance art. And there's something to it. And there's a insane energy that I always appreciate about Gallagher. 66 and 76 are not old. 85 to me is old. 90 is old. 76 and 66 aren't. And it just makes me think about, and I promise we're not going to be serious the entire episode. I kind of know a few episodes back we were pretty serious. There will be funny, but I think at least in this moment, I'm thinking about, is our society conducive to growing old? Have we romanticized youth? Have we romanticized our prime working years? And, are we putting the right things into our body? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we overworking ourselves? We're running till the wheels come off, so to say. And maybe we are. And maybe our society is not, looking at medicine in the long term and innovating medicine or innovating ways to keep people alive. We're doing treatments instead of cures because maybe there's more money in it. But Batman would fight that kind of corruption. That's what Batman would do. So let's honor Batman. Let's honor Kevin. What's going to happen now is the WRKM logo is going to come on and we back to business as usual because even Batman still suits up when he's a little sad. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Gallagher. Thank you, Chadwick. November, tough month. Very contemplative. But what would we be in this society without our heroes? I shudder to think. You're watching WRKM Channel 22, number 1 in the region. Shout out to Michigan, Ohio, Maryland, Arizona, and Illinois for joining the spreading darkness. We appreciate you coming on board. Welcome to the madness. Now, as you spread it to other people, make sure to remind them the following broadcast is for mature audiences only. And please remind them that this is also a satire show. After last week, we kind of have to start mentioning that now. Few people took what we said a little seriously. But what are we talking about this week? Well, here's what we're talking about this week. Britney Griner's in a prison colony. Dolphins are getting high off pufferfish. And a Japanese PM may have been assassinated due to his links to the Universal Church. Yeah, it's one of those weeks. Before we send the A team to go pick up Griner, let's have the talks we can have when the sun is up. Good evening. I'm Rafael Martinez, and this will end in darkness. What is happening? Not a whole lot around here. Hype for Wakanda Forever, seeing it tonight. And what I'm thinking about doing, because next week we did say there would be no episode because we'll be prepping for the big Thanksgiving episode. What I think I might do now is I might do like a small mini review, a 0.5 episode, if you will. Most likely audio only. We'll see. And we'll just do a Wakanda Forever kind of spoiler review show if you happen to see it. If you don't see it, then I guess you won't get the benefit of having a 0.5 episode, but you will have something available to you nonetheless if you do see Wakanda Forever. But yeah, so next week, don't expect a regular episode. We are already preparing for the Thanksgiving special. It's something. We're definitely going to give you something that you can talk about with your family at the table. But first, we have an update on a pretty big issue to our hearts. Now, maybe you have been following, but Britney Griner was captured by the Russians, or arrested by the Russians, for having some hash on her. And we said on this broadcast, and it was a bit of a controversial topic or take, that we did not think her trade value was high. To reiterate, the average WNBA game averages 250,000 viewers. The arms dealer Russia wanted in trading back for Griner is one of the best, and we estimated could affect up to 500,000 lives if released. So the trade value wasn't there. So initially, we were not pro-trade. But we did think it would be going a long way in showing black women that we care. And clearly, we care about black women on this show. We advocate for all kinds of black women, whether you're a trans black woman or a biological black woman. We are here for you. This show cares about you. So now we are in a situation where it was just announced that Britney Griner is in a prison colony now. I don't have the name offhand. We are going to pull that up right now. It's unknown, actually. Fantastic. So I had every right not to know what was happening. No one knows where this prison colony is, but they do know it is kind of a work labor camp, which some places do have for prisons. I think we have some of that ourselves. We do. Well, Kamala Harris did have prisoners working as firemen to take out, forest fires, during her reign over there, and then would bring back prisoners who had already served their sentence back to do it for less than minimum wage. Now, that's a very controversial thing to do, but I understand a debt society may never be paid truly. Does the time really pay the debt? I don't know. Time doesn't heal all wounds, they say. It should, but it doesn't. Now, Britney Griner's in a tough spot. Prison colonies, historically, are not safe. Typically, what happens in a prison colony, kung fu tournaments. That's typically, from my research, kung fu tournaments happen at prison colonies. And we don't know if Britney Griner knows kung fu. So I think she's in terrible danger. This is one thing too far for me. I'm all for regular prison. That's fine, but she is a WNBA star. And that should have some kind of celebrity cachet, should it not? I know no one watches it, but she should be treated better. She does have a talent. Maybe not one people care about, but she does have one. And I don't think she can serve that talent in a prison colony. And it could turn into Battle Royale Hunger Games over there. Do we know if she can protect herself? Does she have any combat skills? We don't know. So we might be in a situation where there's two ways out of this. Number one, Operation Get Griner. I am proposing that America get involved. We need to break her out of prison. And the only group that will be able to do it is a group led by Sam Jackson or Viola Davis with other black action stars, such as Michael J. White, such as Denzel Washington, Will Smith, Wesley Snipes. This is the Anthony Mackie we could throw in there. This is the team that we're going to need to get her back. Denzel's really good at guns, if you've seen The Equalizer, and really good at coming up with little explosions. Wesley Snipes is good with kung fu. He's got a lot of knife training as well. Michael J. White is a kickboxing master. Will Smith's got the charisma, so he can talk his way anywhere. And Anthony Mackie, he's got rap ability. And while, yes, he is Captain America, so I'm pretty good. He's good at shield fighting. But I do feel like he's got the MCU cachet. But I feel like in foreign countries, 8 Mile might be a bigger thing. So maybe he can rap his way or make the album. Anthony Mackie can make the album in which this team goes and gets Griner back. I also want Carl Weathers on the team. He's a tank. He can get through anybody. We got to Tropic Thunder this situation. Because we can't have one of our premier athletes, quotations, because I view her as a premier athlete, some of you may not, in a prison camp, in a prison colony camp. That can't happen in the 21st century. It just can't. It's slavery is what it is. This kind of feels like a Quentin Tarantino movie where a black woman ends up on a slave situation and has to be saved by a group of inglorious bastard black men team. This would make a great movie. But we gotta Tropic Thunder this. It's gonna have to be real. Because we can't get the military involved because that's an act of war. But if we can get actors involved, it's a humanitarian crusade. And who doesn't want, a Netflix documentary, multi-part, of course, about 8 parts, on this whole entire operation? And these are the best people to do it. I would actually have Viola Davis lead the team, actually. We need a woman on this team. Because she's going to make the hard decisions because it's a black woman trying to save another black woman. She's going to make the hard decisions. A dude, I don't know. Even though I trust Sam Jackson cares about black women, it's the gender thing I'm a little worried about. A woman's going to go all out to save a woman. I don't know if a man's going to go out to save a woman. And I know all those actors respect Viola Davis. They respect Sam, but Viola Davis is. Have you seen Woman King? Maybe we just send her by herself. She's fucking terrifying in Woman King. I like that movie a lot. She kicks a lot of ass. Maybe we send her solo. Maybe she's all we need. But we definitely have an Operation Get Griner situation here. And I am willing to fund it with what little money I have. I'm willing to put up $1,000 towards this operation. And I am challenging other podcasters to put in money for Operation Get Griner. We're probably not going to get a lot of money because podcasters historically are cheap or not really making as much money as from advertisers as they say. There's a lot of chest puffing in the podcast game. Some people lying about their numbers. My eyes are on some of you. You know who you are. A lot of people lying about their Patreon numbers because they're not just showing their Patreon numbers because they're afraid if people saw the real Patreon number. Tim Dillon's not afraid to show his Patreon numbers, and that's both good and bad. Because I know how much money he's making, so I can use that as a North Star to what I could be making. But it also pisses me off because I know how much money he's making, and it's a little annoying. But he is talented, far talented than I. But I still kind of wish I didn't know. It makes me sad. I'm also a subscriber. So, Operation Get Griner needs to be in full effect ASAP. And Joe Biden's just fucking sleepy enough that we can get... Matter of fact, we may not have to fund this. Joe Biden's sleepy enough that we can pass this in the Pentagon budget and no one's going to notice. The Pentagon's black budget, no one ever notices that shit. They never notice what's going on with that. Ever. They pass full budgets without even reading what's going on to it. That's why it's called the black budget. So maybe that's what we need to be spending our money on. Operation Get Griner. Or there's a second option. Because there's always 2 options to these things in my mind. Shawshank Redemption. Maybe she's got to get herself out. Maybe this is her moment to become a star. Clearly being a WNBA star hasn't done much for her. Maybe escaping the prison colony will do everything for her. The book deals, the TV deal, the documentary series, the eventual movie that comes out. I was talking to the Revolution the other day, and he was saying, what if Lena Waithe plays her in the movie? I'm with it. A Shawshank Redemption of her escaping from a Russian prison. Maybe there's a Russian Morgan Freeman there. I don't know what that would sound like. I can't do accents. Morgan Freeman here. See, I can't even do Morgan Freeman. Try adding a Russian onto that. And I no. Vitole, I'm Vitole. Okay, how can we? I'm Vitole. I'm Morgan Freeman. See, it doesn't work. We're gonna have to get a real Russian in here at some point to do some of these accents for us. But maybe she's got to crawl through the shit, you know. Or maybe she last castles it, you know. It's another good movie. Robert Redford, a general. He gets brought into this prison that's run by James Gandolfini, who's a super mark for him, and has his heart broken when he doesn't think anything highly of James Gandolfini. He leads a prison rebellion, you know, bringing honor back to these dishonorably charged men and fighting for better treatment amongst the prisoners. Maybe that's what she is. She's already been on an NBA team, WNBA team. Maybe it's a Space Jam situation. Maybe she and her team, no longest yard. It's her team versus the prison guards. And if she wins, she's free. If she loses, they extend her prison time. There's options to this. And Britney's got to really balance them out. Does she want to be saved by Operation Get Griner? Or does she want to do it on her own to maximize her profits? Because she's going to be 10 times more interesting now that she's part of the Ukraine war now. She's another story in it. That's a much better brand than the WNBA, the Ukraine war. And being part of that does so much more for her. The book deal alone, I'd buy that book. And she details all the work that went on. How did she survive all those days, counting them down on her wall, scribbling on them? Crawling through shit to try to get through the tunnel. Or she's building the prison team. Maybe she finds some good Russian women who can play ball. And she brings them back to the WNBA. And they start beating ass. You know? There's so much that can happen here. The possibilities are endless. And I never thought I would say that about someone going to a prison colony. But she has so many options. I don't have these options in life. My life's pretty pathetic. This is the option in my life, this show. This is me exercising the second option in my life. What can you do? What can you do? What can Britney Griner do? She's got to make the best of a tough situation. She's got to make the best. She's got to make the best of a tough situation. But I would imagine. Oh my God! Imagine they televised the prison guard game. They put that on pay-per-view. Oh, real money. You turn into like a high-flying bird situation. Another good movie. Wow, we're just hitting the movies out today. Their whole idea of high-flying bird is that, you know, the NBA goes on lockout. And now, like, these players are going to do one-on-one games on pay-per-view to figure out who's the best, you know, because it's not necessarily breaking the law of the NBA, but it is keeping them, you know, making money during the lockdown. Maybe we're in that situation. Maybe we're in a high-flying bird situation, high-flying Griner. I was told she dunked once. Bobby has pulled up footage of Britney Griner dunking. She's dunked a few times. So this should be a wash. I've never seen a Russian woman dunk. I've seen the dudes dunk. I haven't seen a Russian woman dunk. So she just has to challenge them to a basketball game. Because you don't want to get into a kung fu tournament on a prison colony. But that's the thing about it. Maybe it's not kung fu over there. You know, they're very much into like wrestling and jiu-jitsu. She's a little too thin for that. Someone who did Brazilian jiu-jitsu, her long legs are going to make her a leg lock. Alliterations. A leg lock delight. And if heaven forbid they got a John Dennehy type woman, it's going to be even worse. So Britney's got to do what she's got to do. Or we got to get her out. That's just how it works. We wish her all the best. But I really do hope she takes the Shawshank option, because being a sports star and what's the word I'm looking for? A lifestyle personality is kind of a thing. LeBron James does it. LeBron James keeps trying to pretend he discovered things. Like he discovered the Migos a whole year before they actually dropped their first mixtape. Quite big of a lie due to Takeoff being recently murdered. Kind of shallow of LeBron wanting to get some shine off Takeoff's murder. But it's a real LeBron James move. Doing it on his own is not something he does very well. He has to take the shine off others so he can shine just as bright. What can you do? You live and you learn. You live and you learn. Maybe Britney Griner could, get out a tweet about how she discovered Migos. Be a personality person, Screw being a basketball player. That's not working out. Be the chick that escaped a Russian prison. There's far more money than that. Far more money in that. The only thing I'm afraid of, though, is will a serious studio get involved, or could this be a Lifetime movie? Because I feel like Lifetime is already making the movie. Like, remember when that Gabby Petito chick died? Lifetime had a movie out within months. And it was terrible. The dialogue was horrible. Everything was just bad because you're rushing to get something out. Even though you have that Tiger King thing coming out now with what's her face as Carol Baskin, Kate McKinnon. They took their time with that. The moment's definitely gone for Tiger King. That was more of a pandemic thing. But it's good to see them still holding on for dear life, still trying to be relevant in a ever fast, ever speeding culture where moments happen and then they're gone. But we're getting that. They're making a Wall Street Bets movie. Which to me, it's like, not every economic movie needs to be The Big Short. And I feel like they're going to do that with this Wall Street Bets movie. They're going to make it comedic. They're going to try to make it, funny for Upper West Side whites. And it's going to be one of those things where it's like, it's fine, but they're probably not going to understand why it happened, how it happened, because we're still dealing with the Wall Street Bets fallout of what it's done to the stock market. We don't know for sure what the outcome is, but you got to have that movie. You got to have that movie out as soon as possible because you don't want someone else making it. You got to be the first, even if your movie's not the best one. And I think not everything's The Big Short. I think The Big Short was it was lightning in a bottle. Enough time had passed where you can talk about that. But Britney Griner's got to get on this now. She's got to start planning her escape now. Start writing the second half of her life now. Because working at a prison camp, that's not cool, bro. That's not cool. She's not the only one doing uncool stuff. There was a politician, Mike Ickes, who just lost. The midterms happened. We're not really the election headquarters, but listen, Dems did better than they should have did, considering what typically happens in these situations. But let's be honest, Donald Trump shows up in the last week before the midterm and kind of ruins everything for Republicans by reminding people he exists. And I feel like this is a referendum on him. I think a lot of people went, yeah, fuck that. We're not going backwards there. And Dems won a bit more seats than they should have, or were projected to. And people who were, stopped to steal, election deniers, tanked. People who Trump picked, tanked. Is the mystique of Trump gone? Are people no longer wanting to have a fun time with chaos? I think so. I think it is over. I think if he does win again, Joe Biden's got nothing to worry about because John Fetterman won in Pennsylvania against Dr. Oz. And Fetterman, Joe Biden talks better than John Fetterman after the stroke. So, and he did the best numbers of any of the recent Democratic candidates there, even Joe Biden himself, which is it's his home state. So I think Biden has no problem winning re-election. I think we could put that to bed, actually. I don't think will Trump be the nominee? Of course. They haven't built new stars in the GOP. And Ron DeSantis, I think, is going to bow out. I don't think Ron's going to want that smoke. I don't think he's going to want to. I think the GOP is just hoping Donald Trump dies in his sleep. And I get it. We all just would hope our enemies die in their sleep. But they don't sometimes. Assholes do sometimes live forever. So the GOP is going to have to find a way to fight Trump, get him away from the nomination, but they can't help it. He's too powerful. And I think the base of that party now no longer cares about winning elections. They just want to piss off the libs and piss off the media, which I kind of enjoy. I kind of like the idea of that a little bit. A party of just fucking trolls. But they shouldn't be our second party. They should be our third party, which doesn't get elected. The GOP has 2 years to figure out what they're going to be. You know, are you going to be a party that has an actual plan? Because they had no plan this time go around. They were talking about inflation, but they had no plan to stop inflation. Just the usual Republican talking points about inflation and how it's Joe Biden's fault, but no solution on how they were going to fix it. And this is the problem with the GOP. You now have 2 years to figure out what are you going to be. What's the GOP platform? Because we do need both parties to be strong. I don't believe that, we just need the Democrats to be super strong and then run society forever. I do think you have to have two strong parties because there are two arguments always to be made. You can go too far left, you can go too far right. The truth is always somewhere in the middle. The solutions are always somewhere in the middle. And I think this is where the GOP will have to figure out what they want to be while we figure out what we do with Michael Inkes, who he was running against Jerry Nadler in one of the districts of New York. Jerry Nadler he was a foregone conclusion, but Michael Inkes didn't believe that. He thought he could turn it all around by dropping a sex tape willingly on Pornhub with porn star Nicole Sage. Now, I want to make it clear, I had no idea who Nicole Sage was before this, and I have done a lot of research since then, and I can see why he chose to do it with Nicole Sage. To be honest with you, she is a big time professional. She's definitely someone who's got it together, knows how to elicit a response. Professional, real professional, good looking. That's a given, but professional. And he wanted to release his own sex tape about consent and, how it could affect sex workers and how you should treat sex workers with the same respect you would treat everyone else. Now, some would say he was out of bounds here because, one, he's a politician releasing a sex tape. He's a former sex worker himself, so maybe he was using the art he knows to project his truth. But other sex workers were saying what he could have done instead was to have a panel of sex workers talking about sex workers' rights and the things they go through. To be honest, no offense, that would have been boring. Like, who's going to watch that? Nobody. Like, no one watches panels, sadly. No one cares about in-depth discussions about reality. They want the most ridiculous thing, and he went with the most ridiculous thing in releasing a sex tape with Rachel Sage. I repeat, her name is Rachel Sage, for those who want to look up. And so you too can do research and appreciate the professionalism of someone who would get into this brand of politics. And, good for Rachel. This was a good a booster for her. Her name got out there. A lot of people knew her name more than probably knew her name before. Now, the weird thing about the news story is that no one was really reporting the names of the people. It was just, I wish they had put it in the headline more, so he could have got the boost, but they were making sure no one could find his video. And it's kind of impossible to find his video. I still have only seen like bits and pieces of it. It's a little weird. Would I vote for someone who has a sex tape out? Maybe. If Kim Kardashian ran for governor of New York, I think she's got enough policies where I could be like, sex tape be damned, I'm voting for Kim. Sex tapes, I think, are a hazard these days. People are recording themselves having sex, and it's why I won't do it, because I can't trust a partner. You know what I mean? Like, what if we break up and you drop that sex tape as revenge porn? Then certainly I do have legal action I can take, but it doesn't take away the pain of having my intimacy shown on the internet. But he willingly dropped this one in hopes of starting a conversation. Now, the conversation he started wasn't the one he wanted, which was about consent. What he started was, well, was this a tasteless action? I don't think it was. I think he was in it to win it, and I think it's the future of politics. I think, Donald Trump once said he could shoot someone on the street and still be elected, and people thought that was vulgar. But here's a guy dropping a sex tape, running as a Democrat, mind you, I believe. And, maybe that's where our politics is headed. Maybe you guys are going to start dropping sex tapes. Maybe we'll get some diss tracks out. It is the social media era. We had the first Gen Z congressman get elected. So who knows? Maybe we're bumping up, baby. Maybe politics is going to get weirder and wilder. Maybe more pro wrestling like. Now, the guy who did it, bald man, stocky white dude, looked like a porn star to me, so it wasn't surprising when I saw it was him. But I wasn't happy to have watched it, at least the clips I watched. Rachel Sage was a professional, though. That's something I do need to point out. Very professional, and a highlight, really. An amazing performance. I would say an amazing performance, award-winning, I feel, in my limited knowledge of the space and how they determine who is an award-winning porn star. I thought it was award-winning material. I thought she was giving a performance of a lifetime, and apparently she's given many great performances, and you should take the time to check them out. You should definitely check them out. Now, if politicians are dropping sex tapes, what else could they do? TikTok dances. You can't go back now. TikTok dance. Everyone's doing TikTok dances. Dropping hip hop albums are good. I think diss tracks, that's where we need to go. I would love a Herschel Walker diss track. But then again, I'm not entirely sure he could read or take care of his children. So if you could find time to figure those two things out, then maybe the rap music will follow. But yeah, Stacey Abrams got annihilated, which I could have told anyone was going to happen, because Stacey Abrams is not a ballot contender. When she's not on the ballot, she's an amazing backstage political worker. She can build networks up and all that. But I think once she's on the ballot, you start to realize she's quite cringe. Like we spoke about her on this show before when she said manufactured heartbeats for babies in 3 weeks, which was false. Manufactured? No. Amplified? Yes. That's where you lose. That's where you lose. She was talking about voter suppression in Georgia, even though the voting process in Georgia actually went off really smoothly. People had an average voting time of 3 minutes in most counties. So, bit hyperbolic on her part, but she's trying to win. She's just not likable. I've never heard anyone say they liked her. I've said everyone they're rooting for her because she's a Democrat, but I've never heard anyone say they liked her. And you kind of do have to have a little bit of likability, don't you? I think no one picked up the lessons from Barack Obama, really, about why he was elected. It wasn't so much that he was just the first black president. I think what was smart about him was he let everyone else have that discussion. You know, he was never putting himself in that discussion. He was letting everyone else have it, because if he stayed out of it, he never said anything about it. Now he lets everyone else's racism play out. But he just was, hey, I'm a likable guy with a likable platform. And I'm aware of the corruption. And I'm going to fight it a little bit. But I'm just a likable dude. And I give great speeches. I'm a hell of a performer. Substance? Hit or miss. Some things were great. Some things weren't. You decide his legacy if you like. He also didn't have control of both houses for a little bit too, which is, I guess, the fate of all presidents, really. I mean, listen, it's Joe did, to me, Joe did a solid first 2 years. I remember on his first episode of his podcast, we said he'd do nothing, but he had a first solid 2 years, man. Like, it was pretty good. But of course, inflation shows up. Of course, you know, gas prices are out the fucking, they're through the roof. And people feel some type of way. But abortion, huge issue this year. And it brought the young voter, which every few elections, the young voter pops out to let you know they exist. And then they go away. They don't stay. They go away. So I will be wondering how long this new young voter will decide to stay. And why did they not support the sex tape candidate? Because to me, that's super progressive as fuck. You know, did they not like Rachel Sage? Did they wish he chose someone else? If it was an interracial sex tape, would that have gotten his vote with black, or his numbers with black voters up? I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. He chose a white woman for the sex tape. Or maybe he could have made it more educational. I don't know. But this is the era we're living in. He's not the only one in some kind of weird political stuff. There was a Japanese prime minister that was assassinated not too long ago. And I remember this because I remember a friend of mine was breaking it down for me. That there was some weird shit going on behind it. Let's pull up my notes. Okay, so there was some controversy over Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's assassination. Now, the guy who assassinated him, says that this guy was linked to a predatory South Korean church known as, let's pull that up, the Unification Church, where people have been given money for years. This guy's mom had given close to $600,000 to this church and had gone fully bankrupt. Lost all her money because the South Korean guy says Jesus spoke to him. Which seems to be a common thing these days. Everyone thinks Jesus is speaking to them now, but no one ever has any evidence or any witnesses to also hear Jesus speak to them. I would like Jesus to speak to me. I don't see why he's not speaking to me. I'm a pretty solid Puerto Rican, you know? I have some cool things we could talk about. Maybe there's some pro wrestling he wants to watch. Maybe there's some comic books I could recommend. Some movies. Maybe he'd like to come on the podcast. Me and Jesus rocking out on the podcast. That'd be dope. He's too busy. He's talking to everyone else but me, apparently. But apparently this assassin killed him because he believed he was part of that church. Turns out a lot of the Japanese parliament was part of that church. And there was a whole big sweeping reform to get some of these people out because they were slowly starting to gain control of the government. And here's the thing. Right? I'm all for cults. I support cults because sometimes you do need something to believe in and something to throw money at, you know. But once they start controlling governments, now I'm a little concerned. Keep cults away from government. Separation of cult and state. That's the way I see it. Now we're doing hits for Jesus, it seems. You know, I don't think Jesus would have wanted control over governments. It seems like he was pretty radical against governments, which makes even the book of Revelation a little weird when you consider they say he's going to start a kingdom, but I just don't get the kingdom type from him, you know? I don't think he's going to sit around wanting to hear people's grievances all day. He's got other things going on, you know? Like, he's died on a cross. Is that not enough? Now he's got to sit around hearing grievances all the time, making laws. Like, there is this inner part of us that wants our savior to rule us and, be in charge. But I think that's a bit weird. Hold on one second. But yeah, I don't think Jesus is going to sit around wanting to wear like gold and stuff and have a staff, conduct wars with other tribes, with dragons. I don't think he's going to be interested in doing any of that. That's not the kind of kingdom he wants to run. And it's going to be really upsetting when he comes back and that's not the kingdom he's running, It turns into more of a hippie commune. But let's take a look more deeper into this Japanese prime minister. These are going to be a bunch of names I can't pronounce. Prepare for that. Investigators say Tsuya Yagami, who fatally shot Japanese longest-serving prime minister July 8th, had initially wanted to kill the leader of the Unification Church, a South Korean religious sect that a 41-year-old blames for his family's financial ruin, but COVID-19 got in the way. You see how the pandemic changed our lives? Like, you see how we were all starting on one road and the pandemic happened and we all changed for either the worse or the better. This guy had a whole different plan. He was going to kill the leader of that church. Then the pandemic got in the way and that guy wasn't coming to Japan anymore. So then the prime minister had to bite the bullet. Unfortunate. That damn COVID-19 always getting in the way. Hakja Hamut. See, I'm not trying to be doing an accent. I'm just trying to pronounce it with respect. Who has led the church since 2012. Hakja Hamoon, who has led the church since the 2012 death of its founder. Her husband, Sun Myung Moon, had stopped coming to Japan following the pandemic's related border closures. Oh, so he was going to kill a woman. That's not good. But at the same time, she's a cult leader. In the letter Yagami sent to a blogger a day before the shooting of Abe with a handmade gun, he wrote that it was impossible to kill Hakja Ha-moon, although Abe was not my original enemy. The 67-year-old politician was one of the most influential sympathizers of the Unification Church. I can no longer afford to think about the political implications and consequences that Abe's death will bring. Now, you're probably saying, oh, Ralph, this is Japan, but imagine someone shot George Bush because he was part of a certain church. He was part of the evangelical set. That's what the equivalence would be here. That's what it would be like. Imagine like if someone was like a Joel Osteen fan. He was following Joel Osteen all this time. And now that guy's president. Now he's like, well, fuck Joel Osteen. Because number one, he didn't let people into his church during the hurricane. So that's some real dastardly devil shit. But now that this guy's president and I can't get to Joel Osteen, I'm going to cap the president. So that's kind of what it's like a little bit. To kind of bring it back home. The brazen killing in the city of Nara, did I pronounce Nara? Whatever. As Abe was delivering a campaign speech shocked Japan, a nation where political violence and gun crimes are extremely rare. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida quickly declared that he would hold a state funeral for Abe, while the Japanese public handed his ruling Liberal Democratic Party a sweeping victory in the upper house election just held days after the assassination. So, kind of worked out for them a little bit. A case where an assassination got Democrats some spots in Japan. Not great, but where there is chaos, there is opportunity. But the grief quickly gave way to anger and growing media scrutiny on the church's extensive ties to Abe and LDP, alleged abuses including claims of forced donations. Kishida has, meanwhile, seen her approval ratings plunge 63% after the assassination to about 29% in mid-September, raising questions over the prime minister's future. The Unification Church is not much regarded as a religious organization, but rather a predatory cult in Japan. Nakano, professor of political science at Sophia University in Tokyo. Wow, that's Sophia University? That's kind of cute. So if your name is Sophia, congrats, you got a university in Japan. The LDP's has outraged the Japanese people, just as if ties with a notorious criminal organization has been revealed. Church or cult? Oh, God. Officially known as the Family Federation of World Peace and Reunification, disparagingly called the Moonies. Oh, yeah, because her husband and this guy, her husband and her, the moon, the Moonies. The Moonies. How come we don't have no fun cults like that here in America? The Moonies. You know? Can we do a rival one? You know how like they always make the joke that bootleg stuff comes from China or Japan? Can we do like the Sunnies? And now will be our bootleg version of the Unification Church? Is that wrong to start a cult just to be a parody of another cult? You know, we gotta make money around here somehow. The self-proclaimed Messiah was a staunch anti-communist who advocated for conservative family-oriented beliefs. Famously, he oversaw mass weddings, that's always dangerous, at which he had matched thousands of couples, sometimes by pairing photographs of people who have never met before. Oh, like 90 Day Fiancé. Experts say the church right-wing beliefs helped to expand overseas during the Cold War. Oh, so they're old school. They're an old school cult, bro. They're Cold War. They're grandfathered in. You can't really do anything about that. Once you're a grandfathered in cult, you know, that's the problem with all cults, really, because you don't have history. Technically, one would say Christianity was a cult, but it got grandfathered in. It had staying power. So did Islam, you know, so did Judaism. So in a sense, you have to work a few years to get grandfathered in. So maybe that's what the Moonies are working on. They've been around since the Cold War. Now they're part of this Democratic Party in Japan. They're grandfathered in. I'm having a hiccup attack. But they're grandfathered in, so you can't do anything about that. So this guy was technically trying to take on one of the biggest organizations in the world. You know, like Spectre, or what was the other one from James Bond? Blofeld's organization. Oh no, I gotta remember this. I swear to God, when I see it, I'm gonna get real fucking. I guarantee you, it's the name of one of the fucking movies. I'm telling you, I'm gonna get so mad when I remember the name of this shit. Oh yeah, it's Spectre. Yeah, fucking. I was thinking about Quantum. Cause I thought because Quantum of Solace predates Spectre in a new movie. What the fuck ever. But yeah, you know, so you can't really fuck around with that. Spectre's grandfathered in. They were part of a bunch of political coups and all that. So you really can't get mad at them. You know. But see, like, this is what we're headed to. Now that we have so much information on our politicians out there and we know them in a certain way, these kind of killings will probably happen a bit more. You know, because you start finding out where their money is going to. Like when Prop 8 came out, you found out Chick-fil-A supported Prop 8. They were anti-gay. And now, you know, well, Chick-fil-A is still doing well. But people had an issue with Chick-fil-A. Now, no one tried to kill the guys who ran Chick-fil-A. And I don't think anyone should be killing people who run Chick-fil-A. But if they are part of a notorious cult, is the assassination wrong? I don't know. And that's kind of the problem. I'm not trying to advocate for assassination here. And I'm not trying to say this guy's a hero. But if the church is in fact as corrupt and has a steep control over the Japanese government, he's a freedom fighter. And look how quickly that turns. Freedom fighter to assassin. All you need is a reasonable, or a political belief that someone can. Like, look at the Star Wars guys and Rebels, right? You know, like if you look at the Empire views itself as controlling and keeping control over the universe, keeping order, right? But the rebellion doesn't see it that way. So the rebellion fights back against them and they take over the universe. Now, here we are. The sequel trilogy, which, oof, you have, what were they calling themselves? The First Order. Are they not rebels? Are they not fighting for their own political beliefs? Well, that's the thing about those movies. They never really explain any of the beliefs of anyone in that movie. And then somehow the resistance is tied to the main government, even though the First Order isn't even the main government. They're the rebels. So you have resistance versus technically First Order rebels. And now things get really confusing. But do you see how those words get weaponized or how those ideas get weaponized? Was that too deep? Was that too much? Did I just fuck with people a little bit there? Sorry. I do not support assassinations. Unless they're taking out guys from the Unification Church. No, that's not. Disclaimer. We do not support assassinations here. We do support all kind of drug use, though. And maybe, if this guy had some access to drugs, he probably would have been a little more chilled out. But his mom was too broke, so she couldn't pay for them anymore. $600,000 in debt, which is like $1 million in yen, is a bit rough. So now Japan's going through this situation where they're trying to get rid of some of the guys who are connected to church, or now they're going through a reformation of sorts. But if this guy had just had access to puffer fish, he'd be a lot happier. I read the other day that dolphins are huffing the puffer fish and getting high voluntarily. Dolphins are aware that they can get high off puffer fish, and they are doing it on the reg. And dolphins are already weird creatures. They're said to be highly intelligent. So maybe that's how they got smart. Everyone talks about the stoned ape theory. What about the stoned dolphin theory? Maybe that's how they'll, take over the universe someday. Maybe we all need to be huffing puffer fish. But what does it say about our society that everyone's on drugs, including the dolphins? Don't look at me like that, Bobby. What does it say about our society? That everyone's on the drugs, even the dolphins. It's tough times ahead, baby. It's tough times ahead. Now, I'm not advocating for people doing pufferfish drugs, but if you have to, do what you can. Do what you can. Maybe Britney Griner will find some hash in there, in the prison colony. Maybe our sex tape politician was on drugs when he came up with the sex tape idea. And maybe this assassin will find peace with some psychedelics if they allow him the treatment. Because I know Japan's kind of strict on that. Because the dolphins are certainly coping. They seem to be doing just fine. They're laughing. They're flipping. Having a good old time. With that being said, there will not be an episode next week. There'll be a 0.5 episode next week for Wakanda Forever spoiler special, but we will be prepping for the Thanksgiving special, which will be highly researched. It's something we've been wanting to do here for a little bit, and I'm kind of excited to finally get to it. And I hope it paves the way for other episodes like it, in which we take one particular topic or person, and really, give the research, go in, talk about their impact, talk about who they were. The Kanye one was kind of like that. I think it was more recent. This time we're doing a historical figure. I will say Alan Dulles. We're doing Alan Dulles for the Thanksgiving special, and we're hoping to have that released, I want to say Tuesday night, week of Thanksgiving. We just need a few more days than we normally have to produce that episode. But Alan Dulles will be on the docket. Who was Alan Dulles? Why was he important? And what does he have to do with the assassination of JFK? We're going to have some fun table talk when that happens. But then again, who knows but us how this one is going to end.